Chapter 11. Hello, Newman. Ordinarily, I love a good road trip, the adventure and the excitement of the open road, the bad junk food that you eat along the way because it's 3 a.m. and nothing else is open, the idea of going somewhere new and unexplored you've never been before. The freedom to just travel and wander along at your own pace without a set schedule to adhere to. But sadly, this trip is not that. I look around from my position in the passenger's seat and watch as Luke taps his hands on the steering wheel to his music and then look back at Kate. Poor girl, when I suggested carpooling, I had no idea that Newman would be tagging along for the ride. Of course, Newman being Newman, he's already flapping his big fat lips about suggestions, things we should say and things we probably shouldn't mention. At the beginning, I'm half listening, but then it becomes too much. Way too much. Listen, I say, as I turn around and face him. I get that you're new and want to make a good impression with the higher-ups and cement your authority on the rest of us early on. That's all fine and well. But I think you should remember a couple of things. Newman is silent a moment, then looks fuming and replies, "And what would they be?" "Number one," I say, and hold up a finger. "We're all on our day off here. We're not getting paid for this, so there's no incentive for us to be here. We're doing the club a PR favor just by making an appearance regardless of whether we say anything at all. Number two, we wouldn't be in this mess if the lazy goddamn security guard had been doing his job and, looking after the patron's security instead of sitting around scratching his ass all day." "I think that's a pretty unfair accusation," Newman says, but I shake my head at this. "No, it's the truth," I reply. "I've seen his Candy Crush score after all. Level 250 for fuck's sake. I didn't know it went past 100. If anyone should be here, it ought to be him to apologize to Julius. If my job performance was routinely as bad as his, I'm pretty sure Christine would be interviewing for my position before the end of the shift. But then, hey, what do I know?" "Let's just get this over and done with," Kate huffs as she checks the messages on her phone, and that is something we can all definitely agree on. We pull up in the car park, and from there we head inside to the artificially lit reception area where we announce ourselves to a curly-haired, middle-aged female receptionist who chews gum as she sits there with a faraway look in her eyes as if she's dreaming of being on an island somewhere in the Caribbean. I know that look. Hell, I wear it every day at work along with my black shirt, pants and shoes. No, we explain to her who we're here to visit and she tells us that poor Julius, he hasn't had many visitors, well, except for his mum. After getting the room number, I'm not sure what to expect. Will Julius be sitting in a garden chair outside reading the paper or lying in bed with his face covered in bandages? We knock and hear the words come in. So we enter and see Julius lying in bed with his head propped up against a few pillows and bandages, covering most of his face just as I'd guessed. As with the receptionist, Julius has this blank, faraway look in his eyes as if he's having trouble concentrating on anything. But then, that's probably just the drugs and the painkillers. Newman is all suited up for the occasion, and ironically, with his build, he looks more like a nightclub bouncer with short man syndrome than a manager type. But all the same, he tries to look friendly as he approaches Julius first of all. "Hello, Julius," Newman says. "We're here from the club. Just wanted to see how you were getting along." "The club?" Julius replies in an airy tone and looks around. "The club? Oh yes, of course. The Royal Yacht Club? How silly of me to forget a thing like that. How are things at the club? Is the regatta still on next week? And the polo tournament for the members at Ascot? I was so looking forward to that. I trust everyone there is missing me and would like to know what happened." Julius pauses here. What happened to me?" he asks, and I step forward. "Nasty accident, Julius," I explain. "You fell down some stairs." And at these words, Julius just nods his head. Yes, Julius replies, as if deep in thought or remembrance. "I fell down some stairs, that would explain it. I imagine the deck was wet or something, and well, accidents happen. Can't do much about these sorts of things, really, can you?" Newman then clears his throat, and he hands Julius an envelope. On behalf of management at the club, we'd like to offer you a free meal for two at the restaurant. It's the least we can do for a valued club member like yourself, Julius, after your many years of patronage. Oh, well, that's just delightful, Julius says in his usual pretentious tone. I shall inform Margaret henceforth, and we shall have a splendid evening together at the club. Who else do we have here? Julius looks over at Luke, then who says, Hi, I'm Luke. I just started at the club. You probably haven't talked with me a lot before. Not to worry, Julius says. I've been told I'll be recuperating for a little while. Plenty of time to catch up and swap stories, eh? For just a moment, I catch Luke's eye and watch as he looks horrified. The colour seemingly drains from his face as he hears these words. Even Kate looks somewhat amused as she watches this too. Newman looks at his watch then. Well, he says, I have an appointment nearby, and then I'm afraid I have to be back at the club, so I'll be heading off. It was really nice to see you, though, Julius, and good to see you're coming along so well. And after a hearty handshake, he says his farewells and departs from the scene post-haste. Lucky bastard. Who's this with you then? Julius says, as his eyes lock on Kate. Margaret! What a pleasant surprise! So you got my telegraph then? Well, that's just splendid. For a moment, Kate just freezes on the spot as Luke and I look at her and begin grinning from ear to ear, and she gives us both a dark look in response. Yes, Kate says. I'm here, Julius. I think there's something you and I should talk about. But I tug on her shirt sleeve and shake my head as she looks at me questioningly. Say, Margaret, I interrupt, placing emphasis on the name. What say you and I have a word for a moment over here? And I indicate the empty corner of the room away from Julius's bed. Excuse us for a moment, would you, Julius? Absolutely, Julius says, and I all but drag Kate away. What do you think you're doing? I ask in a whisper as she looks at me crossly. I've already gone beyond the call of duty for the bloody club, she retorts in hushed tones. I'm not going to play bloody Princess Margaret and fuel his delusion, or it'll just make it worse. You're absolutely right, I reply quickly. We should be honest above all else. Luke, why don't you go tell Julius how his face really got rearranged, and I'll prepare our witness statements for the trial. Should be fun, and I'm sure it'll look great on our resu. Okay, Kate relents. I get your point. Now, what was it you were going to say, my dear? Julius says to Kate, who looks a little surprised as she takes a seat at his bedside then. Well, I don't know if you remember Julius, Kate begins hesitantly, but there was an incident at the Royal Yacht Club. That's how you had your accident. I'm standing there trying to look calm, but I'm thinking to myself, shit, Kate. Don't you say what I think you're about to say, or we're all finished. Yes, Kate says. It seems you'd had a bit too much to drink that night. Quite a bit too much to drink, and you made something of a spectacle of yourself. But, Julius protests, I only ever drink tea. How is that possible? Kate thinks quickly for a moment then, yes, dear, she replies. But on this occasion you'd had quite a few Long Island teas. I'm afraid that was Prince William's doing. He can be such a bad influence. Unfortunately, after you showed all the members of the fencing club your rear end, and well, the other things I perhaps shouldn't mention in polite company, I just don't think I can show my face at the Royal Yacht Club for some time. Oh, Julius says, a little deflated now. Oh, if only I could remember. Oh, how could I have been such a fool? Can you forgive me, Margaret? And Kate nods after a little pause of silence. Julius smiles then, and seems to be reflecting on something as he looks at Kate. Seems like only yesterday, Margaret, you and I were sailing around the south of France. Such happy, carefree times those were, do you remember? Ah, yes, Kate replies. Who could forget? As I and Luke begin snickering and trying to contain our laughter. I do think we should set a date for the wedding, though, don't you, my love? Julius asks then. I have been doing some planning and... That's a fucking understatement, I think to myself then. The guy's been planning this marriage for the last several years. If this wedding isn't absolutely fucking perfect, he's wasted a lot of time. And because I generally know my lines and just the right moment to use them, I say, well, In that case, Luke and I should probably get going so that you and Margaret can plan out this wedding and, have some alone time. For a moment, as Luke begins laughing a little, Kate just looks daggers in my direction. Yes, but I've so much to do today, Kate answers defensively. Full schedule. Lots of royal things to be getting on with, you know how it is. Just had enough time to pop in and say hello, but now I'm afraid I really must be dashing off. But Luke isn't ready to let this opportunity go either. All ready, Margaret? Luke teases. But you didn't even give your poor fiancé a kiss. Oh, that's okay, Julius says, as Kate flashes Luke a particularly nasty look. I'm sure I must look a rather dreadful sight at the moment. Not to worry, dear, Kate assures him and pats his hand. I'm sure you'll be back to your old self in no time. Yes, I add, and what's more, I'm sure there is absolutely no truth to those rumours. We all know how the tabloids love to make things up to sell magazines. Why, I'm sure there's a perfectly logical explanation for what happened and... Excuse me? Julius asks then, as Kate flashes me a sharp look. But what rumours are these exactly that you speak of? Best to keep him guessing, I think to myself. You know what? I reply. I'm not even going to give them credence by explaining them. In fact, I have said too much already. Julius, it's been great to see you as always, and we shall look forward to your return to the Royal Yacht Club. A few games of baccarat, perhaps for old time's sake, and I'm sure you have some stories to entertain us with as always. I too shall look forward to it immensely, Julius says proudly then, and so we say our farewells. Kate's being the most awkward as Luke and I do our best to stifle our laughter, a process which lasts until just after we're out of the building, and then we can contain ourselves no longer. Well, Luke says casually, sure glad that's over. Why? Kate spits out rather spitefully. You seem to be enjoying yourselves. At my expense, I might add. In fact, I'd go so far as to say you did what you could to draw it out so you could just fucking torment me in there with Julius. Bastards! And here she points a finger at us both. And don't you bloody think for a second that I'll forget it next time Angry Joe's in the club, or when that new guy is looking for someone to pin blame on for something. Oh, come on, Kate, I say defensively. You've got to admit, it was funny at the time. I mean, the idea of him mistaking you for Princess Bloody Margaret, that's hilarious. Even Kate sees the funny side then as she laughs a little. I guess, she admits, I'm starving now though. You'd think the least the club could do for us coming all the way out here on our day off would be to offer us a bloody free meal as well. Shortly after this, we find ourselves at a burger joint for lunch, swapping stories and chowing down as we discuss the events of the day. Newman seemed a little cranky today, I say casually between fries, and Kate just looks up from her burger. What did you say? She asks, a little confused. Newman, I repeat. You know the new guy. He kind of reminds me of the fat guy from Seinfeld. Can never remember his name and, well, Newman just came to me and... That's just ridiculous, Kate says. I mean, his name is... Yes? Luke asks patiently. It's, Kate looks away then, drawing a blank. Tim, Tom, Tony, fuck it, who cares? He'll be gone soon anyway and we'll have George to deal with again. So, not looking forward to that. How sad it must be for Julius to live like that, though, Kate adds, reflecting for a moment. Why do you say that? I ask. I don't know. Kate muses and grabs a few fries. It's just, well, he's so pitifully deluded, and he's always the butt of everyone's jokes. No one takes him seriously, and he's living in a fantasy land. At some point, something will happen, and it'll all come crashing down. I think about her words for a moment. Yes, but in the meantime, I counter, at least he's happy some of the time, you know, even if only in his imagination. What's the alternative to that? And this question is something we all ponder in silence for a time, as none of us really has an answer. It's a few days later back at the club that I start to realize just what a thorn in my side Newman is going to be. I've been rostered on only a few days this week, and once again, it's Friday and fucking Saturday night. God damn it. There goes the weekend again. Newman, for his part, looks rather proud of himself for his latest strategy, the cleaning roster. A blue folder full of annoying little tasks that he's using to impress the brass who are too lazy to do and so handball on to the rest of us. We, of course, don't want to do them either, so we inevitably do the most half-assed job possible, if at all, and then just put our initials to it as a job well done. It's a scheme successive supervisors and managers have tried to implement at the club, and after a period of time, that little blue folder just ends up dusty and neglected somewhere under the cashier's desk and all but forgotten about. "Hello, Margaret," I say in my best Julius impression then, as Kate comes in and just shakes her head at me. We get into the routine of the working day, and it soon becomes apparent that Kate has something on her mind. "My bloody shifts have been cut again!" Kate huffs angrily as she works at the bar while I cashier and talk to a few customers who come up for change. "You too, huh?" I reply. And a little while later, Newman opens the office door and appears with a sheet of paper and a whole pile of tickets. "Something just doesn't add up in this shift," Newman says. "Mike, you don't have much to do at the moment. You can take a look at these cash tickets and see if you can find the variance. I'm willing to bet one of these hasn't been entered into the system and verified. Here's the amount we're looking for." With that said, he drops the pile on my counter and retreats to the coziness of his office, and most likely a secret stash of chocolate bars or something. I mean, there's got to be something he does in there for that long each day. It's certainly not work, that's for sure, or he wouldn't constantly be dumping it all on me. "Shit," Kate says in disbelief as she looks at the pile of tickets. "There's got to be at least 100 of the bloody things there. And he wants you to check them all? Bastard." I look at the accompanying sheet of paper, which shows the cashier's closing figures then. 138, Kate, I say slowly with disdain. 138. "Well, I don't have a lot to do at the moment either," Kate says. "I suppose I could give you a hand. Check the tickets that are about the right amount of what's missing and the smaller ones too. Wasn't Jasmine supposed to be out on the floor today?" Kate asks then, as she spots a girl I've never seen before moving between the machines. "I don't know," I reply with a shrug. "After what happened the other day, I just kind of figured that maybe she got canned and management kept it on the down low. You know how they can be with these things." I stop for a moment as I see an old Chinese couple walking past the cashier to a bank of machines and groan in disappointment. "What's wrong?" Kate says as she follows my gaze while I watch the couple walking around. "I hate those pricks," I say and look at them. "I know you're always telling me that I dislike everyone, but these people are just plain goddamn annoying." Kate laughs. "And why's that Mike?" she says. "I don't know if you noticed it with the big M," I explain, "but the Asian ladies are even more superstitious than the regular mug punters. They keep these special coins or tokens on them for luck. They think the number 8 is really lucky for them for some reason. So, of course, they're always playing that lucky 88 machine. And if someone is playing a machine they want, they just stand there." "They stand there?" Kate asks, confused. "I know," I reply as I look over the sheet of paper. "They just stand there looking over the shoulder of whoever's playing until they get told to leave by staff or the player or the person leaves. They're just rude, selfish bastards. And they don't speak a word of English either. Makes explaining to them the fact that they are rude, selfish, annoying bastards just that bit more difficult." Kate just laughs at this, but then of course to kill the mood, Newman makes another appearance. "It seems we're a person short tonight," he announces gravely. "You're going to need to stay back, Mike. I'm afraid there's no alternative at the moment. Jasmine was supposed to be coming in, but, well, things have changed and now we're a man down." "Right," I say, and then go back to my paperwork as there's a loud cheer while someone has a rare victory over her machine. "He can't do that," Kate says. "I mean, that's an extra—" Her voice trails off and I just shrug in defeat. "There's not really much I can do," I say. "I guess I just have to weather the storm until George gets back. I'll say this for George, at least he always gave people the shifts they deserved and knew how to keep everyone relatively happy." The new girl, a blonde-haired, tallish waif with bright blue eyes and an easy smile, has a name badge that identifies her as Rachel. Rachel approaches the cashier a little hesitantly. Hello, Mike, she asks. I've got a bit of a problem over at the machines. There's this old Asian couple and they're standing behind one of the players, a big lady wearing glasses, and the big lady is upset because she doesn't like them watching. What should I do? Don't suppose you know Chinese? I ask before I've really thought of it, and she smiles and shakes her head. Kate, I say, and look over at her. Could you give Rachel a hand? I have a feeling this paperwork is going to take me a while, and Newman probably wouldn't like it if I left the cage, you know. Yeah, okay, Kate agrees. Thanks, I say, and go back to my work. On the one hand, I guess I should be happy. The boozed-up tradie is no longer around. Angry Joe is likewise absent as well as Vula. But today, Newman seems to have made his intentions clear to me at least. He's going to do his best to make me utterly miserable while he's here. Maybe that's what he does with all that time he spends in the office, dream up new and exciting ways to fuck with me and piss me off. You look tired, a familiar voice says, and I tear my eyes away from the tickets and paperwork to spot Edith standing at the counter with a cup of coins in her hand. I'd like to tell her that it's all okay and that I can, as the saying goes, asleep when I'm dead. But in this profession and with Newman around, I'm really not so sure about that. I'm pretty confident, in fact, that if I did die, the bastard would probably have me resuscitated just long enough for one more job. So look, Mike, Newman would explain, the club has organized the funeral and everything, but, well, it seems we're a man down. You're going to have to act as the fourth pallbearer. And how are you, Edith? I ask loudly, remembering her dodgy hearing aid. Did death come for a visit yet? But still Edith screws up her face at this and starts playing around with the device. What's that, Mike, my dear? Edith asks in her annoying, grating voice. The grandkids, I say, automatically correcting myself. Have they come for a visit yet? No, not this week, Edith says loudly. But I've got my granddaughter's recital next week. Did I tell you about that? Only 100 fucking times, I think to myself. I give Edith her change, and just after she's departed, I hear another familiar voice that makes me freeze on the spot. Unbelievable! I look up and spot Vula talking on her mobile phone. I know, that's what I said. I know. Can't believe she said that. If Vula's back, then one of her friends must have called her and explained that Jasmine got canned. If that doesn't make it official, I suppose nothing does. Kate comes back to my counter then and looks about as thrilled as I do to see Vula again so soon as she shakes her head. That bloody woman, Kate complains. After the earful I got from her because of Jasmine's lousy coffee, I don't want to hear another word out of her mouth. You know what works really great in coffee? I ask Kate then, and she just shakes her head. I don't know. What? Kate asks. Wait, let me think. If this is Vula's coffee we're talking about, then it has to be arsenic or something, right? Nope, I reply. What you do is you boil the leaves of rhubarb in water, and done correctly a few drops of that stuff, let's say 3 or 4, is enough to hospitalize or even kill someone. Really? Kate asks in surprise, and I nod. The best part is it's completely undetectable in an autopsy, I conclude, and Kate just grins. Well, that confirms it then, she tells me. Confirms what? I ask. That's the last time I ask you to make me a coffee, Kate says, and sticks her tongue out at me, then walks past me with a tray piled with coffee mugs and plates. Hey, I say after her as she's leaving, you don't know what you're missing out on. I make a mean mocha, and quite frankly, my iced coffees are to die for. And as she looks back at me and shakes her head, I just wink at her. The thing about working while surrounded by people who are so old they just might drop dead at any moment is that at some point one of them may just ruin your day and do exactly that. Because just as there's a rotating door with the staff at the club, so too there's a rotating door with the customers, although it's the annoying ones that tend to stick around just to inflict maximum frustration and pain before they depart. To another club or to the great big pokey venue in the sky. One man's heaven is another's hell, though, and so if their definition of heaven is sitting around for all of eternity in front of these machines, then a gaming staff member's definition of hell must surely be spending eternity listening to them bitch about money, their health and other assorted problems while they shout coffee orders at us. A gaming shift that literally never ends. Now that's hell. To try to take my mind off Vula and all the annoying customers in general, I do my best to think of something that makes me happy, but at the moment, all I see is Newman's fat, bloody frame. I'm sure he's just getting back at me for undermining his authority in the car in front of Luke and Kate earlier on, but for now, as I told Kate, there's not a hell of a lot I can do in response. The war, it seems, will have to remain a cold one until I can come up with an effective counterstrike to put the bastard in his place. A fitting send-off. But what would it be? Perhaps Luke can join in the fight. He has the same motivation that I do since his hours have been cut down as well. That new girl, Rachel, she's a bit clueless, Kate says upon her return to the bar. The Big M was pretty upset about those people watching, and it took forever to convince them to find another machine. Luckily for us, they found a red one. For some unknown bloody reason, they think red is a really lucky colour. Pains in the ass they are. I find myself staring at a sea of numbers until I'm almost feeling a bit queasy from it as I work my way through these goddamn tickets and don't even notice the fact that Kate is standing right beside me then. "Sorry," she says as I practically jump. "Nah, don't worry," I reply. "I've been looking at these damn things way too long already." "Don't see why Newman can't find them," Kate says, and it warms my heart to hear her using my nickname for the bastard. "Do you suppose Julius will just snap out of it one day?" Kate asks, changing the subject then, and I look at her a bit puzzled. "Snap out of what?" I ask. "This fantasy of his," Kate explains. "The whole Princess Margaret thing, all of it. I mean, he was fine up until a certain point, and then he just went off the rails. I do feel a bit sorry for him. I mean, he's built up this whole artificial make-believe existence, and what if one day he can't put on the show anymore? If it all becomes too much, what happens then? You don't think he'd—" And Kate's voice trails off. The silence hangs between us then as surely as a noose. What would Julius do, I think to myself? But of course, this being the club, silence doesn't last very long at all. Bloody unbelievable! Vula is carrying on once more as another Greek woman sits beside her. "I just know this one she's going to pay out. I put in, and she take it, and she have to give me something back. Have to." Kate and I laugh quietly as we watch this little pantomime of hers. She's playing a tragic character, and she doesn't even know it. Kate serves someone a beer over at the bar, and while she's pouring it, I have some time to myself to think things over. "Well," I explain to Kate then as she returns, "I've got to say if the choice is between a fantasy life in which you're sometimes happy and that—" I fall silent as Vula becomes more vocal. Then I know which one I'd rather pick.